We're counting down to playoff football in D.C. on Grant and Danny. We want to hear from you guys. Who's going to the game? And how did it come about? What is the plan? How much did you drop? What is your travel itinerary looking like? And if you're staying home, what are you going to do? Because you and I have had this debate over the years, Danny, never for a game of this magnitude. But there are times along the way when the Caps are making their cup run or the Nats are going deep into October. When you start to prioritize, I've got to enjoy this. I've got to lock in. I want to hear the calls and the broadcast. It's not just about high-fiving friends when good things happen. But you've also been waiting so long for this. You've been on those text chains with your dudes, your chicks, your friends, and now's your chance to revel in this joy together. So I wonder how people are going to take the game in.
Yeah, there's no right way. Everybody's fandom is different, and it's yours. You don't apologize for it. So for the Nats postseason run, for example, after you and I would do the pregame show, I would end up watching with buddies a lot, especially for the road games, the ones that were at home. Of course, you and I were at pretty much every one of those. For the Capitals, it was similar. For football games are a little bit different because obviously we have to dissect so much that goes into it. I kind of need to focus and lock in more. But this is, again, a different animal in so much as it's a postseason game, right? Normally, like your week 13 tilt, I've got to be able to talk about that play in the third quarter, and I'm taking notes kind of throughout and sort of locked in a way that's not very social. But this is, to your point, this like shared experience. So I don't blame you if you want to go to a bar. I don't blame you if you want to have a watch party. I don't blame you. However you want to take this in because it's so rare, it's probably the right call.
Well, I also think we have to take our proclivities out of it.
Yeah.
Because of what we do, right? We have to have the notes and be ready to go the next day. Although I will say, I think that a Saturday game opens up the options extensively. Like when they played Sunday night in Tampa Bay, I knew with travel and everything, getting on the plane at 5 a.m. and getting back here and getting into the studio, it was going to be really hard for me to rewatch the game the way that I want to. I could do a condensed game pretty easily and take some notes, but I wasn't going to be able to go back and watch everything. A Saturday night game when we're not on until Monday afternoon, if I wanted to get together with people and watch, we could absolutely pull that off.
Right.
I got all day Sunday to go back and do a lot of my own research and some of those things. So it actually is fortuitous in that way, if you're talking about covering the game. I mean, I guess the question first for us would be, what would be your perfect way? Obviously, I'm going to be there. I'm going to Detroit. I'm excited about it. I've, like so many people in this town, only covered a few playoff games ever for obvious reasons. But it's one of those where I didn't want to miss the atmosphere. Frankly, if this game was in L.A., I probably would not have made it a priority to go. Not just because of the travel, but as cool as SoFi Stadium is, it just wouldn't have been as significant a division round matchup. Even if it was in Philly, which is easy travel, so I'd like to have attended, I'm going because of the scene in Detroit, largely. I want to see my team, obviously, but I believe this is as good an atmosphere in the playoffs as we've seen in the last 20 years. These Lions fans, their obsession with this Dan Campbell operation, they've had 2 weeks to buy these tickets and to ramp up their energy. They'll be partying all day, morning and afternoon, long before nighttime kick tomorrow. I really believe that we overuse the word electric when it comes to atmosphere.
That's what it is.
I think this is going to be unlike anything we've probably seen Washington play in a while.
Yeah, it's up there with like major college football atmospheres. You know what I mean? Where it's just you're waiting around and the whole city is behind it, and it's a buzz, and they're galvanized, they're focused, and they're starving, quite frankly. I mean, that's the extra part of it. And it's not starving with a 9-17 that snuck in, hoping that they catch a break. You know what I mean? Those Jim Caldwell teams that were fine, pretty decent even, that blew a lead against Dallas if they'd had a home playoff game. You'd have hoped and you'd been loud. They know they've got it.
Yep.
Like there's a confidence to it. There's a you puff your chest out a little bit more. There's an energy there that's the perfect storm. A team that hasn't done it in decades or really ever, and a team that can absolutely do it and probably should do it, to be honest with you.
800-636-1067. You want to hop in on the MGM National Harbor listener lines. We want to know about your plans for game night on Saturday. I think I'm a less is more guy for these, like in terms of gatherings. So maybe my perfect ideal situation would be posting up in the basement with the big screen. I'd probably invite mom and dad because I just grew up falling in love with this team with my parents. Probably my siblings that would want to come. I can only imagine one of them who's a big fan would make the trek. And then maybe like brother-in-law, but like really diehard marks, and probably keep it small, like familial, and do like a 10 to 15 in the crib more so than like a Super Bowl party, which I'm all for those, by the way. I love going to a Super Bowl party. That's just a different atmosphere. Like this is too important. There's too much on the line.
Yeah, but what if Washington was in the Super Bowl? Would you do this? Would
Well,
you do it?
That's a whole nother discussion. Right? I don't know. I've never had to think about that.
That'd been a problem for you guys.
I can't answer that just yet. But I mean, maybe at that point you got to go right to the Super Bowl. You got to find a way. But so your perfect situation is
it's buddies without kids, which is now pretty much impossible.
Ooh, anti-kid operation.
Because when
are you the guy that when you get married says no kids?
Oh, 100%. But what ends up happening is when you're a parent, there's no dad's watching the game. It's inevitable. There's loud noises, there's distractions, whether it's your friends' kids, it's your kids, they're in the room because that's where everyone else is, and there's noise. So now they're in there. Now all of a sudden they're playing with the Lego, and now they need help with this Nintendo Switch or whatever. That's to me the best as a couple like-minded fellas that are living and dying just like I am. I need the snide comments from the one dude that's the pessimist. I need optimistic Oliver to tell you that even though they just ran it for 25 on 2 consecutive plays, the next play will go your way.
You want that?
I need everything.
Wow.
I want those ingredients of for the big game. All the buddies in the room, no kids.
As much as I'm generally anti biggest game of the year in a bar environment, I got to tell you, I got videos from my buddies who run a couple of places. Jeremy over at Walters sent me the vibe of that night.
Just great.
I think it was the doink field goal reaction, and it was bedlam. And same with, we were just out at Crystal City Sports Pub.
Yep.
And Jimmy sent me a text, same thing of, by the way, you want to talk about Times Square in New York? That place was slammed, just like Walters was. But I get that. Like wanting to just be around other people and share that unbridled joy and just the giddiness. Like it's pretty fun to be around strangers who want to hug you. It's not a very common thing. It
doesn't happen a lot.
Sports is one of the few things that can bring community together like that.
Yeah, Juan Soto gets a base hit. You don't mind that you're covered in beer and that your neighbor is a stranger. Let's embrace.
Let's go to Drew, who's in Columbia on Grant and Danny. Drew, what are your plans for the game?
Hey, guys. Well, so it was harder to get everyone to go. I'm actually going and hanging out with Tailgate Ted because his normal crew and our normal crew couldn't go, but we had a couple of groups. So we decided to go together, and I'm going to hit the plane tomorrow. And
nice. Where are you sitting?
There and in section 134, relatively close.
Oh, so you got a great seat.
Yeah, we were buying those tickets in Tampa before leaving Tampa.
I love that.
Love it.
All right, if you don't mind, how much are you dropping on a ticket?
It was a little over a G.
Yeah. Hey, you don't know when the next time you're going to get to go to one of these is. I get it. I will tell you, Danny, the most money I've ever spent on tickets to anything were in Vegas for the Cap Stanley Cup. I think it was $1,200 a piece for me and my wife for game 2 of the Stanley Cup, if I remember. And that was the Holtby the save game when the Caps evened it and went, came back.
I had fun that game. I was there. That was a good one to be at.
Yeah, that was great.
I enjoyed it.
Yeah. So that was probably the most expensive. And then all purpose, I got 3 seats to all 3 World Series games.
I was going to say the World Series games, that's set the Hoorays back a little bit.
And that was, I want to say that was, per seat, it was less than the Cup. But it was, I think the number in my head is $1,400 a game for 3 games. And I'm remembering like 4,200 or something like that.
Yeah, whatever the number was, I was like, I'm going to take my father to a World Series
That's
game.
what it was.
I'm going to be doing that.
One night I went with my parents. One night I went with, I think my wife's parent or mom, who's a big Nats fan. And then one night was just a couple of buddies. But like, we're doing this thing.
Yeah, we're going to make that happen.
And I have not regretted either one of those for 1 second. Now, they won both of those. I guess the Nats technically didn't win the game I was at.
I saw a bunch of losses, but
they
still,
lost all 3 of those.
I'd spend it again tomorrow.
Do you think, though, had the Caps have lost that game and that cup, would I feel differently? Probably not.
I wonder.
Or the Nats if they lose game 7 or whatever.
Yeah, because
like if you pay that much and you go to Detroit and Washington loses by 13, very different than you're high-fiving Terry McLaurin as he runs off screaming, "We're not done yet," after a Zane Gonzalez field goal at the horn.
Yeah, because it's part of a journey. It's part of something bigger. I mean, we didn't know at the time. I mean, they'd lost game 1, talking about the Caps, in very odd fashion, right? Where it was sort of, they were sloppy. It was a free-for-all. There was a cross-check that should have been called, and what was the game-winning goal? It wasn't. And then the Caps kind of were holding on for dear life in that game with the save. We didn't know that they were just about to steamroll that poor group from Vegas. So the fact that it was this step on a journey kind of makes it that much more profound and impactful.
Jed is in North Carolina listening on the Odyssey app. What's up, buddy?
Hey, how you doing? I'm heading up there. I love your point. You want to get your best buddies who live and breathe it that just like you do. So Alec and I from Alexandria, I live in North Carolina now, but we're heading up to Detroit. I heard there's a skins bar actually, so we're going to try to do that, rally around it. And to your point, you run the risk that if we're playing a tough team and it doesn't go great, but for the chance that it works and obviously to be there and support these guys, it's all worth it.
I think you
did
got to
Vegas
be there
as well.
just in case, right? That's kind of the idea. What's the skins bar?
Totally.
I've been asked a million times by people.
So we were told this place called Vertical by a buddy in Detroit. So maybe he's setting us up to get
Lions
ambush there. But we were told that some Skins fans might be meeting there. So we're going to try to find those guys. And at least the lead into the game is going to be outstanding. And obviously the way this team's been winning, you never know what's going to happen.
Yeah, you got Jaden Daniels. You're going to have a shot.